If you've felt the pull to slow down, to create and cultivate a more homegrown life that's simple and fulfilling, and to truly enjoy the magic of ordinary days, then friend, you found your place. I'm Caitlin. I'm a barefoot, Blue Ridge, homegrown mama, and this is the Homegrown Hopes podcast. We'll chat about everything from gardening and scratch cooking to homeschooling and motherhood. With some sarcasm sprinkled in, of course, because I am my daddy's daughter and Lord knows I'm fluent in that. Just know that whatever it is we're discussing, I am by no means an expert, and I'll never claim to be. I'm just sharing my experiences, the good and the bad, and making the most of the little moments in between. I'm so excited you're here, and so humbled that you've chosen to follow along and hopefully join me in cultivating our homegrown hopes. Hey guys, welcome to the Homegrown Hopes podcast. I am your host, Caitlin Etheridge, and I'm so glad to be back here with you. If you listened to the last episode, I mentioned that I was going to be taking a couple of weeks off, a little 2-week break, and that was 4 weeks ago. So I'm still alive. It's a very busy season of life, and we will talk more about that in this episode. But I am very excited to be back with you here. And I hope y'all had a wonderful May. Most of May I was away from the podcast because it was just one of the craziest months that I can remember. So if you listened earlier in the spring, I talked in depth about the Holistic Homestead Conference. That turned out amazing. I just could not be any more pleased with it. It was an incredible group of people, an overwhelmingly positive response to it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and check out past episodes. It's an event that my friend Mandy and I hosted here in the foothills of Western North Carolina. We created this event and worked for over a year to put that dream together, and it was on May 18th of this year, so a couple of weeks ago, and it was just wonderful. It was so much work. I think I'm still recovering a little bit, but it was just really fun to bring a dream to fruition like that with a dear friend, and we worked really well together, and I'm just so thankful to have partnered with her because it made a world of difference to work alongside somebody who works as hard as you on things like that and also who dreams as big as you. So it just was a wonderful experience. We had classes all day long from 9 to 5. We had some incredible vendors who came in with all kinds of homestead related goods and services. We had a delicious lunch. I'm still thinking about that barbecue. I don't even particularly like barbecue, which I know I'm from North Carolina. Somebody should smack my mouth, but I think I just ate it so much growing up that I never think, man, I could really go for some barbecue right now. But let me tell you, I have thought about that barbecue. And the biscuits, man, I need to get the chef's recipe because it was so good. We had, I was on the homeschool panel, so we had a really fun and intimate group of moms and a dad who chatted about homeschool and the laws that go along with that in North Carolina and the different learning styles and learning to school intuitively and to tap into how your child learns, and also to recognize that we have to break a lot of preconceived ideas of what school is supposed to be like in order to make it really fulfilling and fun and successful. So, man, I could spend an entire episode talking about that conference. It was just the most exhausting and rewarding day. I absolutely loved it. We're already planning for next year. So if you're sad that you missed out, you can visit holistichomesteadconference.com and reach out to us. We are planning for May 17th of 2025, and we've already got some great classes on the lineup, great vendors. We're growing next year, and so I'm really excited to see where this goes. So if you're wondering where I've been, that was a good chunk of the 4-week break. So we had that conference, and it was, we planned for an entire year, and she and I were working the week before, and I said, why am I not more stressed about this? Why am I not freaking out? And we were like, well, we've met like every week for an entire year. We have really done the footwork ahead of time to where the week of, it wasn't smooth sailing because there are always a million little last minute details that you have to take care of that just cannot be done ahead of time. But it really was not like we dropped the ball on anything, which is, with an event with that many moving parts, is an absolute miracle. So I'm glad that it's over, just for the amount of, work and stress that went into it. But I cannot wait until next year. I'm so excited. So that was May 18th. So that was like the first 2 weeks of my 4-week break. And then also, in this season of life, we are in the process of building our forever home. And, oh man, it's a process. There's a lot of little decisions to make. And thankfully, we actually outsourced. We went with a modular, and I'm very glad that we did, because it did take a lot of the work off of us, but we did our own basement. And so we're at the point where the home is here and it's set up, and we're so very excited. But now we're in all of the, finishing stages here. So we're framing out the basement. And when I say we, I mean, like, I'm handing people tools and carrying boards. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm so fascinated by the process of building. Like, I love to figure out the math behind all of this. I know that sounds nerdy, but it's just mind-blowing to me, the amount of detail and forethought that goes into building. I'm really, really interested in that. But so it's been a family endeavor in the basement portion, and some of the landscaping, and just, a million moving parts there. Coordinating finish options and inspections, and basically pretty much every evening that we have free from sports, we're working on the house. We're also doing multiple instrument lessons. We're finishing out the school year and wrapping up our end of grade testing. And if you listen to my previous episode, it was episode 11, I talked about the behind the scenes of our homeschool. So you probably know that we loosely school year round. So we're pretty regimented throughout the typical, 9-month school year. And then in the summer, we just don't take completely off. And that's something that my children, when they were younger, really bugged me on, because they didn't understand why their cousins were out of school all summer. And it's not like we're sitting down and doing an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. It's nothing like that. But we do still do a few days a week of lessons, and really, we enjoy the summer and the beautiful weather, but we try to incorporate learning into things that we do, which we do throughout the school year anyway. But it just gives us the freedom throughout the year to take a week off if we need to. And, while we've been building the house, we took some time off for hands-on learning, being out there and actually building. And there's just been days where the work didn't happen in the evenings. It had to happen during the day, and school had to work around that. And we incorporated that into our lessons. And so being able to still do some work throughout the summer allows us to be more flexible throughout the year. And it's something that I think when I first started homeschooling, I thought, oh, heck no, I have got to have a summer off, because that first year, even though it was, lower grades, kindergarten was the first year that first grade was the first year that I homeschooled my son. And it wasn't a particularly hard year, as far as the lessons, but you have an emerging reader, you have a newborn baby. It was a trying year. So by the time that May rolled around, Mama needed a break just as much as the kids did. But, as we've evolved over the years and figured out how to make our schedule work for us, going throughout the summer is something that we've incorporated. And that may change again eventually, but for right now, that's how we're operating. And it's usually, it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. A lot of times, just depending on what plans we have that day, we could do it in the middle of the day, in the heat of the day, because a lot of times as the temperature starts rising, I really like to get outside and do my work in the garden and all of that early in the morning before it's sweltering. So we still work the school schedule around our days, depending on the season that we're in. So that's a lot of what's going on. kind of hectic. We're doing baseball still. We're wrapping up baseball. And so that's been a couple nights a week. And just, it's been a very busy season of life. And especially this last week, 2 weeks probably, when I had every intention of recording the podcast and returning, there have just been a million things to do and I could not get it together. And I felt really, really bad and guilty over that the first week that I was not able to record an episode. And I just prayed about it and, took a dose of reality that some things have to be laid down in order to do the things that are necessary. And so in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about finding rest and diving into that. So as I mentioned, busiest season that I can remember in recent years. And it's a good busy, it's exciting things happening, but it's still exhausting. And we have this family group text thread going, and we were talking about slowing down. And a quote came to mind that has always stuck with me. I believe it's by Corrie ten Boom. And I read her book a few years back, The Hiding Place, and just really dove into her story. And a quote that has always stuck with me that I had really forgotten until that family text thread came up is, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. And that has struck such a chord with me and convicted my heart over the last couple of weeks, and was really something that kind of gave me the internal permission to lay down the podcast for even a couple more weeks than I had intended, because it was just one more thing on the list that was really stressing me out, to be completely honest. So if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. That is something that is so profound to me because it absolutely applies to my life. I think so often, especially in our culture, busy is seen as like a status symbol. Look how much that person's getting done. They're doing it with 4 kids. I only have 2 kids. I need to be doing more. That person's cranking out, a YouTube video every other day. I can barely get one a month. That person's writing 5 blog posts a week. I am not doing that. That person's, homeschooling 6 kids. I'm only homeschooling 2. And so there's a lot of comparison, and there is a lot of the amount of stuff that you get done and the amount of activities that you cramming into your day somehow correlate with how well you handle stress and how successful you are. And I think that is an idea that I really personally have to break. I also think that I probably, me personally, feel sometimes, not all the time, sometimes I just throw it all to the wind. But a lot of times I feel like, as a stay-at-home mom, and I'm doing air quote fingers because I am absolutely a work-at-home mom, and I think because I don't have a traditional job working for someone else, sometimes even I don't see it that way. But I think that sometimes as a at-home mom, I feel like I have to prove myself more with how much I can do and how much I can carry and how much of the load I can carry. And it's caught up with me this last month. So some of the ways that I have noticed for us personally that being busy is starting to affect other areas is a loss of connection. It's really important for me, even though I'm home with my kids all day, I can get to the end of the day and feel like I have not connected with them at all. Even if we're in the same room with each other, we could be doing different activities. I'm washing dishes and listening to a podcast in my ear, and they're in the other side of the room, doing a math lesson, and playing with baby dolls. And we're in the same room, but we're not connecting. And those are 2 very different things. Just because you're with someone doesn't mean you're really with them. And so in this season of life, and some of it has been that I've been away from them a little bit more. Family has stepped up and helped watch them some while I've had meetings and certain things that I just have had to go to that are easier without children in tow. And that's been such a blessing, but it also makes me feel very, very guilty. And not just guilty because I don't have my kids, but it makes me feel just, I guess, a disconnect. I really enjoy spending time with my kids, and I enjoy it when we have the time to really interact with each other and not just rush around to the next activity. And speaking of rushing around, we've definitely gotten out of our daily rhythm. And a little bit of that is, the transition into summertime and a little bit more of a relaxed schedule. But we've gotten out of our rhythm in so many ways. We really like to sit down and have breakfast as a family. It's been kind of helter-skelter, and, we're eating at different times, and we're trying to get things done, or I'm working and I'm putting food on the table for them, and I'm in the other room, shoveling something down while I'm doing something else. We've gotten really out of rhythm as far as like reading together at bedtime, doing our Bible study together in the mornings, things like that are really important to me and to our family. We've just gotten completely out of that routine. And I was doing really well for a while on, meal prepping during the weekends and prepping healthy snacks and taking the time to slow down and cook with my daughter. She loves to cook and bake, and I can't tell you the last time that we did that, because all I can see is, no, we're in a hurry. We've just got to get this done, and I don't want a sink full of dishes to wash, to be completely honest. So, and when we do slow down and bake together, those are some of my, most cherished times and most special memories and times connecting with her. And we just have not been doing that lately. And I know that's something that's important to the both of us. So definitely getting out of our rhythms. And as I mentioned before, I haven't been prepping healthy snacks and things like that. We've made some unhealthy choices. I have definitely not been drinking as much water as I should. I've been replacing it with a lot more caffeine, and not just coffee. I've tried a couple of those little, quote unquote healthy energy drinks here lately, and they're super tasty and a little pick me up, but I know that that's not what my body necessarily needs. When I am being intentional with my time and really making good choices, I make a point every day to have a big jar, because I drink out of a mason jar, a big jar of like electrolyte water and coconut water and things that are really nourishing to my body more than just an energy drink. So not necessarily making the healthiest choices or providing the healthiest snacks, and not moving my body as much as I like to. I hear children coming in upstairs, so they're probably going to interrupt this. But I haven't been moving my body in the way that I want to, I guess. I do enjoy, going for a walk or working out. I don't love working out. That's totally a lie. I like doing like yoga and stretching and things like that. But my body is telling me that I need to be doing better activity. I feel like I'm probably justifying it as, well, I feel like I never sit still. I don't sit still. This sitting down and recording this podcast is the first time that I have really sat in a long time. And again, I'm not saying that like as a badge of honor. That's stupid. I should sit down and rest every day. But I just feel like if I'm sitting still, I feel like something else is not getting done. And my body's paying for that. So the week before last, I feel so old saying this, I threw out my back, and it's still not right. But it was just kind of nagging at me a little bit. And I think that it's probably got something to do with, I didn't even mention this as part of my busy life. It's also market season. If you don't know, my family has a reclaimed wood business. I do the market side of things, where I take some of our mantles, and then I have reclaimed wood charcuterie boards and our merchandise and pottery candles and things like that. And it's market season, and I have had a market every weekend, sometimes more than one a weekend, for the last like month and a half. And that has caught up with me. And it's a lot, like the boards are really heavy. They're in these big totes. I have to load them in and out of the car or the truck. And I guess that's caught up with me. So week before last, I threw my back out, and it's the dumbest way. Like it was already bothering me. We had gone to Lowe's and gotten a lot of materials for the basement that we're working on. And I was right in the passenger seat, and my husband, turned into the turn lane. He wasn't like driving crazy or anything, and he just barely hit the brakes to slow down. And I instinctively, I guess you don't notice that you do this until you're paying attention to it, but I just kind of tensed my body to prepare for a stop, and it did something to my back. So it wasn't even like as bad as a sneeze. I just tightened my muscles, and it has not been the same since. So I think just all of the things are adding up, and my body is telling me that it's time to slow down a little bit. We've gotten out of, our routine of good sleep patterns. We've been staying up later, sleeping in later, and that does not bode well for me. I'm a morning person. I want to get up and get my day going, and I like to be up and have a lot of stuff done before the children arise. I am a softer and kinder person if I get a little bit of me time in the mornings, and I haven't been getting that. And then also another very outward reflection of the chaos that is our life recently and the lack of rest is the amount of clutter. There's always a pile of laundry. There's always dishes in the sink. And part of it is because it's market season. I have a very large table set up in our living space where I'm branding boards and working on those and sanding them. And so it's all compiled into the perfect storm to make me realize that it's time to get a handle on things. And so I realize that I'm probably not the only one who is in this boat. And I find that this is something that I have known, that I know. I get more and more stressed the more things that I do let go, and this is going to be hard for me to explain. Taking action makes me de-stress, and that sounds like the opposite of what I'm saying. You're supposed to rest, but I'm resting in the wrong ways. Instead of slowing down and connecting with the kids, I'm disconnecting and scrolling on my phone because I just want a minute to not think. If I can't brush my teeth without scrolling on my phone, that is the dumbest thing ever. And I've caught myself doing that the last couple of weeks. And that's just another way of overstimulating my brain and making life harder on myself. So as I was fleshing all of this out, I thought that I would share some ways that I'm going to get a handle on it, and maybe it will help you as well. So the first thing, as all of this was kind of becoming real to me, is I dove into the Word. Something that's really important to me is one-on-one quiet time with God, and that's something that is one of the first things that I let go. And I know that I'm not the only person that does that. It's one of the first parts of my day that gets thrown to the wayside when things get busy. I really love journaling and writing out my prayers, and it makes me be more focused on what is important and where my mind and my heart should be, because I believe that our minds and our souls need rest just like our bodies do. And so I went to the Word first, and a verse that always stands out to me is Matthew 11:28, and it says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." And so the first thing I did when I was realizing just how tired I am is I prayed about it. I read that verse, and it just comforted my heart. And then I sat down and wrote out what my priorities are. So after going to the Lord with this problem, I think a great step is to identify what your priorities are. For me, as I said, it's quiet time with God, it's slow time with my family, and it's also time in nature. I can be so busy working on computer work or housework that I get to the evening and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have spent hardly any time outside. I went out and fed the animals and came back in to get more stuff done, and that does not bode well for me. I like to be outside. I really cherish that time. So those are things that are really important to me. And then also the second thing that I wrote down here as I was making out my list of ways to combat this issue that has arisen is recognizing that needing rest is not a weakness. So I can let go of what I think I should be doing, what someone else is doing, that comparison game, what I feel like I should be able to handle. If I'm exhausted and I think there's no reason for this, I should be able to do more. And sometimes that is. There's a difference between being exhausted and being lazy. And so I guess the next step would be for me to realize that admitting that I need to step back a little bit and maybe cut some things out of my schedule, or not even cut the things out, but maybe rededicate my time and rework my priorities. That is not a sign of weakness. And then also something that I spoke about in episode 3 of the podcast, I've talked about preparing for the week and the month ahead. Taking a little bit of time at the beginning of the week, or maybe it's midweek, whatever works for your schedule. Maybe you're off on Wednesdays and you need to do it on Wednesdays. Taking a little bit of time to plan ahead, to look at your calendar for the week, to figure out how you're going to spin all of the plates, and maybe ask for help on some days that are really hard. My mother-in-law stepped up last week and helped me so much on days when the schedule was just so full that I was struggling to be all over the place. Multiple lessons and a fiddle recital and baseball practice. And so maybe looking at your schedule for the week or for the month and saying, that's a day that I'm going to go crazy if I don't ask for help. And I'm learning to do that, and it's so very helpful. But by being proactive and taking a little bit of time at the beginning of your week to prep some healthy snacks, to look at your schedule, to do all the things that I mentioned back in episode 3, you can create a little bit of margin, probably, in your schedule. You know, we probably have more time than we realize that we have. And so if you can create a little bit of margin, you can create a little bit of breathing room, and even just having a few minutes to sit down and think clearly. Like when I sat down to write out the outline for this episode, a million things came to my mind. And it's just because I gave my mind a minute to be quiet. I wasn't listening to an audio book. I wasn't doing something else, answering a question. I was alone and I was thinking things through, and creating a few minutes during the day to have that time can be really, really important and can really help you to assess what your schedule looks like, maybe to reevaluate what's important and to shift accordingly. And then maybe it's time to lay some things down. I said that earlier. Maybe there are things in your schedule that you really dread and that aren't necessarily serving you. And it's okay to step back from those. And for me, the last couple of weeks, it wasn't something that I dreaded, but this podcast, as well as my blog, was something that my mind just could not even go there. There were so many other things going on. It was really nagging at me that I wasn't doing what I had set out for myself to do in my head. And I just had to lay it down and then tell myself, it's done. Here's your start date. And that's when you can worry about it again. Until then, do the other things and catch up. And that was really a relief for me. And then also, I think something that is so easy to overlook is scheduling rest. That sounds very like type A, like, oh, I'll pencil in that I'm going to rest. But if you don't proactively make time to slow down, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to make that time for you. If you don't even make it for yourself, you can't expect other people to create that time for you. So maybe it's a daily walk. Maybe you get up really early in the morning and you walk with your cup of coffee. Maybe mornings are hectic for you and it's an evening walk. And maybe it's not alone. You know, I think maybe it's been a wrong idea of mine that I've had sometimes, that I'm not really resting if I'm not alone. And that is just so not true, especially my children are of an age now where they are still very needy, but they're not like so needy that I'm carrying them all the time or changing diapers. They're really fun to interact with. Not that they weren't when they were babies, but they're at such a fun age that we can go for a walk and it's not more work for me, unless somebody takes a bike and I end up having to push it back. If you've seen that Instagram reel, then you know what I'm talking about. But for the most part, it doesn't add a whole lot of work to my life to have my children along with me. So that can be a moment of rest. But also it's okay if I just need to turn off my brain and take a walk by myself. And I shouldn't feel bad about that. Maybe just take a long shower. I think that sometimes a shower can fix everything. And I mean a whole shower, like wash your hair. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks this way, because I put off washing my hair probably more than I should share, because I hate fixing it. You know, it's one of those things, it's just an extra step. But when life is really stressing me out, if I take a whole body shower, actually wash my hair. I feel like a new woman. And maybe that is something that you schedule in, like Sunday evenings. That is my pamper night. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to exfoliate. I'm going to take off the crusty nail polish and toenail polish that's been on there for 3 months. So I look like I have a gangrenous toe. That's coming off on Sunday night. Also, this is a total pivot, but talking about scheduling and time, I love, and my kids love this, having game time. They love playing board games. And it's one of those things that it's really easy to push aside. Like, no, I don't have time to stop and do that right now. But maybe, on Tuesdays, we're going to have board games. We're going to play a board game. Or maybe every morning at like 9 o'clock, we're going to play a board game or something, whatever. But scheduling in the time to slow down and, have a game night with the kids or have a movie night. My kids love movie nights. And I will tell you, it usually ends up they get their little movie picked out, they make their popcorn, we get everything all cozy and start the movie, and then I'm doing dishes and I'm so disconnected, even though it's pretty close in the same room, but I'm not sitting down watching it with them. And then I'll go take a shower and I'm like, oh, finally me time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but the handful of times that I have actually sat down and had a movie night with them, they are thrilled. They absolutely love having the whole family together for a movie night. So maybe scheduling that into the schedule, knowing that Friday night's going to be a movie night, and that means y'all are going to help me with these dishes. When dinner's over, it's not going to be me standing in the kitchen doing it and missing half the movie. Everybody has to help and pitch in order for movie night to happen. And that's a no-brainer, but so many times it's just, like I said, it's kind of been survival mode. We've been out of our routine. So maybe identifying your priorities and what's important to you, recognizing that rest is not a weakness, needing to slow down does not mean that you're weak, creating margin by planning ahead, maybe lay some things down that are not serving you in this season of life, and also recognizing, point number 2, needing to rest is not a weakness. Maybe also recognizing that you're in a different season of life. Maybe you cannot do all of the things right now that you could do when you only had one child. And accommodating those changes, and also recognizing that where you are now is probably not where you're going to be a year from now. Life is ever changing, schedules change, priorities change, but just recognize the season that you're in and know that it's only a season. So it's okay to lay some things down, and it's a good idea to schedule rest, schedule some time throughout your day. Maybe it just means, at 9 o'clock in the morning, you have a cup of coffee and quiet time, and everybody knows Mama's sitting in her favorite chair and she's drinking her coffee, and I'm not going to go over there and ask her a question right now, or 50 of them. Anyway, this is just my thoughts on, and again, as I always say, I'm not giving you advice. This is really me talking to myself, and I have just felt very discombobulated the last month or so, and things have just been 100 miles an hour, and it's time for me to rein it in a little bit. So I thought maybe I would share with you guys what I'm doing to try to slow down and rest a little bit and get a better handle on everything that's going on. So I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will be back with you next Tuesday. I will be back. I won't leave for a whole month again, but I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.